You're listening to the Curious About Cannabis podcast. It seems like the medical system's trying to find a balance right now between the limitations of isolated pharmaceutical compounds, herbal medicine, integrated lifestyle management, all of these different things. It's trying to figure out where that balance is. And certainly, I think pharmaceutical advertising, there are big problems with that.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the core problems, really.
It's bad optics. And I think that's why so many people are suspicious. And I find myself kind of in the middle on this a little bit with some skepticism.
Yes.
I think that, once direct-to-consumer advertising started happening, it's a problem, and only 2 countries in the world allow that.
Exactly.
And we have to look at that. I think it's really naive when anyone's like, oh, all these companies are really altruistic. I'm like, no, they are they're interested in their shareholders and profit. So let's think about that. And when my daughter broke her arm and had to have emergency surgery, I was grateful that she was given drugs and was being able to work with a great anesthesiologist who was able to she had to be put under it safely and all, like, awesome. Right. Like I'm grateful for, because to just have to be awake and endure that without anything, it would have been really tough. So time and place, and but it's a big topic. And I think there's, the optics of it aren't great with the advertising. And then also whenever kind of an expose comes out, like there was one that came out on 60 Minutes maybe a year and a half ago about opioids, and how, it was 6 months ago, but just how a lot of the companies that are involved in the distribution of opioids, and then the pharmaceutical companies themselves and it was this kind of whole story about the diffusion of responsibility, but it was basically a whistleblower came out from the DEA and said, we're not able to really do our work and bust people like we were with these major underground, opioid situations that are going on. So it's complicated, but even like a story like that, none of the companies want to be interviewed or comment on.
Right.
So it's like that is, it has this perception of the big bad. I don't know. So I think they've not done a great job. What started off like, oh, this is great, we can advertise to people, but now they're skeptical.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how
where that's going.
Yeah, where's it going, and will there ever be any regulatory change around the direct consumer advertising? Because it definitely bothers me that someone's going to a doctor and basically advocating for their own treatment based on a limited understanding of the drug, their condition, whatever.
Yeah.
And it takes some autonomy away from doctors and nurses and other healthcare professionals that many of them, not all of them, but many of them get into the profession because they want to help people 100%. And they want to have that experience working with people, trying to understand what's going on and guide them to some solutions. And if the patient's coming to them saying, this is what I want, or if they're getting pressure from other angles, like, there are issues with insurance and the way that affects costs, and the way that hospitals have to have such high throughput, and it limits the amount of time that doctors and nurses can spend with patients. There's all of these elements that seem to be stripping away the healthcare professionals' ability to actually do the jobs that they want to do and have studied to try to do.
Have you seen the data on empathy during medical school?
No, I don't think so. Oh my gosh.
Drops. So it's like people come into medical school feeling like empathetic toward other people. I'm here to help or whatever. By year 3, it's completely diminished. Not totally dry. A doctor could be listening to this, be like, I'm an empathetic person. I get that. But there was a good study that showed empathy scores drop throughout medical school. By year 3, there's a massive drop. And then by the time they're leaving, it's like, so the process, they get pummeled in the process of medical school, and it's long hours and it's intense. And you talk about sleep deprivation. Holy cow. Walker has great data on that too. Medical accidents when people are sleep deprived for these long shifts. The advertising it's the US and New Zealand. Every other country says it's unethical and misleading to do this. So that it's gotta, I hope that changes. And it's a larger picture though, right? It's like we have a system that is reliant on people being kind of sick to be profitable, right? We have our medical system is based on profit, whatever route that comes through, not on health and wellness.
Right.
Right. So if people were like, hey, my patients are super healthy and they're going to the sauna consistently and they're exercising, right, I should be rewarded for that. There are systems I've read about that countries that have models somewhat that do that, but ours is very far away from that. We need medical interventions to make money. We need heavy duty equipment where, for 5 seconds of using this equipment, it costs $7,000, right? Because it's a $3 million machine that we got to pay for with every time we use it, right? So it's complicated. We've created a weird system that we need. We sort of need people to be a little bit sick, but still in there, kind of hanging on enough that they're using the system.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's complex. And I know I have good friends who are nurses and doctors and awesome people who are like some of the most diligent people I know, who are really, their heart's in the right place. And they, my doctor from a few years ago, he was an older guy, and I asked him, how long till you retire? He's like, I'm gonna go 3 more years and I'm out. And then I got a letter about 6 months later that said, your doctor's retired. So here's some new options, where I was like, wow, okay. So he was kind of done.
Yeah.
Great guy, but just kind of like, especially some of the older school doctors, like the new electronic medical records and some of this kind of tracking and insurance stuff. He was like, I just want to be with patients.
Yeah.
And I can't, it's hard for me to do that now in this system.